What if being single is not a delay, but a sacred turning point? While the world rushes toward connection, Buddhism teaches that the deepest transformation often happens in stillness. This is the season where illusions fall away, where the noise of expectation fades, and where you finally meet the person you have been running from, yourself. Many people search for love, hoping it will quiet their restless mind, yet true peace is born when you stop chasing completion and begin awakening to your own wholeness. This journey is not about rejecting relationships. It is about becoming so grounded, so clear, and so awake that when love finally enters your life, it no longer feels like a rescue. It feels like a meeting of two complete souls walking the path with awareness. Solitude as a mirror of the true self. When you step away from romantic attachment, something subtle begins to change inside you. The constant noise of expectations fades, and you start hearing your own thoughts more clearly. At first, this silence can feel uncomfortable, because many of us are not used to facing ourselves without distraction. In Buddhist understanding, this discomfort is not a problem, it is the beginning of awareness. The Buddha often spoke about how suffering grows from clinging, and relationships can sometimes become a place where we hide from our own inner work. When the distraction disappears, the mind naturally starts revealing what has always been there. In solitude, you begin to notice patterns that once went unnoticed. You may realize how often you looked for reassurance from others, or how silence once felt like rejection. These discoveries are not meant to create shame. Instead, they offer a chance to understand the roots of your reactions. Buddhism teaches that observing the mind without judgment is one of the most powerful forms of growth. You are not trying to fix yourself immediately. You are learning to watch your thoughts like passing clouds, understanding that they are temporary and not your true identity. As days pass, solitude becomes less about loneliness and more about clarity. You start recognizing how much of your identity was shaped by how others saw you. Without constant feedback from a partner, you begin asking deeper questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What values guide my choices when I am alone? These questions can feel heavy at first, but they slowly open a space for authenticity. Instead of performing a version of yourself to be accepted, you begin building a self that feels real and steady from within. Mindful presence becomes the key during this stage. Simple practices like observing your breath, noticing your emotions without reacting immediately, or spending time in quiet reflection help you understand the movement of your inner world. Buddhism reminds us that the mind is always changing, and solitude allows you to witness that change directly. You may notice moments of restlessness followed by calm, or waves of doubt followed by unexpected peace. Each moment becomes a lesson showing you that your thoughts are not permanent truths. Over time, the fear of being alone begins to soften. You realize that solitude is not an empty space waiting to be filled. It is a mirror reflecting who you are becoming. The more you observe yourself without resistance, the more confidence grows naturally. This confidence does not come from external validation, but from knowing that you can sit with your own emotions without running away. You begin to understand that identity is not something handed to you by another person. It is something shaped through awareness, patience, and consistent self-understanding. This chapter of life teaches a quiet but powerful truth. When you learn to be present with yourself, you stop searching for someone else to define your worth. Instead of fearing solitude, you begin to appreciate it as a teacher guiding you back to your true nature. Letting go of the idea that someone will complete you. One of the most common beliefs people carry into relationships is the idea that another person will fill what feels missing inside them. Movies, stories, and social expectations often reinforce this image of finding your other half. From a Buddhist perspective, this belief can quietly create suffering because it places your sense of wholeness outside of yourself. When you expect someone else to complete you, you give away the responsibility of understanding your own mind. Staying single becomes an opportunity to gently question this belief and replace it with a deeper awareness of inner completeness. At first, letting go of this idea can feel unsettling. The mind may resist because it has been conditioned to think that happiness arrives through attachment. You might notice thoughts like, "I will feel secure when someone stays," or "I will feel valuable when someone chooses me." Buddhism teaches that these thoughts are forms of craving, and craving often leads to disappointment because it depends on conditions that constantly change. People change, emotions shift, and circumstances evolve. When your peace depends entirely on another person, it becomes fragile. Recognizing this truth is not meant to make you distant from love. It is meant to make your love freer and less burdened by expectation. As you spend more time alone, you begin to see how much of your identity was shaped by seeking approval. Without a partner's constant presence, you may feel a gap where validation once existed. Instead of rushing to fill that space, Buddhist practice encourages you to sit with it patiently. This is where real transformation begins. You start learning that worth is not created by someone else's attention. It grows through self-understanding, mindful actions, and the way you treat yourself when no one else is watching. Slowly, the urge to be completed by another person begins to soften. Mindfulness plays an important role during this stage. By observing your thoughts and emotions without reacting immediately, you begin to see how the mind creates stories about needing someone to feel whole. You might notice moments when loneliness appears, followed by moments of calm that arise naturally. These shifts reveal an important lesson. Feelings are temporary. They come and go like waves, and they do not define your value. The more you witness this impermanence, the less power the idea of completion holds over you. Over time, a quiet confidence starts to develop. You realize that being whole does not mean rejecting connection. It means entering connection without losing yourself. Instead of seeking someone to rescue you from discomfort, you begin to appreciate relationships as spaces for shared growth. This change in perspective transforms how you view love. Rather than searching for someone to fix what feels incomplete, you start building a life that feels meaningful on its own. When love eventually appears, it becomes a complement to your journey instead of a replacement for your inner stability. Letting go of the belief that someone will complete you does not make you cold or detached. It makes you more present and compassionate, because your actions are no longer driven by fear of being alone. You learn to give and receive without clinging, understanding that true connection happens when two whole individuals meet with awareness. In this way, staying single becomes a powerful lesson in freedom, teaching you that completeness is not something you find in another person, but something you cultivate within your own mind. Discipline as a form of inner freedom. When people hear the word discipline, they often imagine restriction or pressure. Yet in Buddhist wisdom, discipline is not about control for the sake of control. It is about creating a structure that frees the mind from chaos. During a season of staying single, your energy is no longer pulled in many emotional directions, and this creates a rare opportunity to shape your daily life with intention. Instead of reacting to constant emotional highs and lows, you begin to notice how much space exists for focused growth. This space becomes the foundation where discipline transforms from a burden into a quiet form of liberation. At the beginning, discipline may feel uncomfortable because the mind is used to seeking quick pleasure or distraction. Without romantic attachment filling your attention, you may notice restlessness or boredom. Buddhism teaches that this restlessness is natural. It is the mind adjusting to stillness rather than escaping it. You learn to sit with it. Through simple routines like mindful breathing, consistent sleep habits, or dedicating time to learning and reflection, you slowly train the mind to stay present. These small actions may seem ordinary, but over time they create a sense of stability that reduces inner conflict. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you realize that discipline is not about forcing yourself into perfection. It is about aligning your actions with awareness. The Buddha spoke about the middle path, a balance between indulgence and harsh self-denial. In this context, discipline becomes gentle but steady. You choose habits that nourish your mind instead of draining it. You begin to notice how certain actions create clarity while others lead to confusion. This awareness naturally guides you toward choices that support long-term peace rather than temporary escape. As your routines become stronger, you may find that your thoughts become calmer as well. Without constant emotional distraction, you start observing your patterns more clearly. You notice when your mind wants to procrastinate or seek comfort in old habits. Instead of judging yourself, you respond with patience. Each moment of returning to your chosen path becomes a small victory. Over time, these repeated moments build a deep sense of trust in yourself. You learn that freedom does not come from doing whatever you feel in the moment, but from having the strength to act in ways that align with your deeper values. Another important aspect of discipline is how it shapes your relationship with time. When you are single, your schedule becomes your own. This freedom can either lead to growth or to aimlessness. Buddhist teachings encourage using time as a tool for awareness. Even ordinary activities like walking, eating, or working can become opportunities for mindfulness. As you practice being fully present in these moments, you begin to experience a different kind of freedom. It is not the excitement of constant stimulation, but the calm satisfaction of knowing you are living intentionally. Eventually, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like natural movement. You wake up with clarity instead of confusion, and your actions begin to reflect a sense of purpose. This is why discipline is often described as inner freedom. It removes the chains of impulsive behavior and replaces them with conscious choice. Staying single during this stage allows you to strengthen this foundation without distraction, creating a life that feels balanced and steady. And as this inner stability grows, you realize that true freedom is not the absence of structure, but the presence of mindful direction guiding every step you take. Healing karma through self-awareness. In Buddhist teachings, karma is often misunderstood as punishment or reward, but in its deeper meaning, it simply refers to the patterns created by our actions, thoughts, and intentions. Every experience leaves an imprint on the mind, shaping how we respond to future situations. When you remain constantly attached to relationships without reflection, these patterns continue repeating quietly beneath the surface. Staying single offers a rare opportunity to pause and observe these patterns with honesty. Instead of blaming others for past pain, you begin to explore how your reactions, expectations, and fears have contributed to the cycles you experienced. Self-awareness becomes the starting point of healing. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to look closely at your own habits. You might notice how quickly you become defensive, how strongly you fear rejection, or how easily you cling to emotional security. Buddhism encourages approaching these discoveries with compassion rather than judgment. The goal is not to criticize yourself, but to understand the causes behind your behavior. When you observe your mind with patience, you begin to see that many reactions were learned responses rather than fixed parts of your identity. This realization creates space for change. As awareness deepens, you may start connecting present emotions to past experiences. Memories that once felt heavy begin to make more sense when seen through the lens of mindfulness. Instead of trying to erase difficult moments, you learn to sit with them gently. Buddhist practice teaches that resisting pain often strengthens it, while observing it with acceptance allows it to soften naturally. Through reflection, meditation, or quiet contemplation, you begin to release the emotional weight that once influenced your relationships. This process does not happen overnight, but each moment of honest awareness weakens the hold of old patterns. Healing karma also means taking responsibility for your choices moving forward. You begin to recognize that every action creates new conditions for the future. Small shifts in how you speak to yourself, how you respond to stress, or how you set boundaries slowly reshape your inner world. Instead of reacting automatically, you learn to pause and choose responses that reflect clarity. This mindful approach transforms karma from something that controls you into something you actively reshape through conscious living. During this stage, solitude becomes a supportive space rather than a lonely one. Without the pressure to meet someone else's expectations, you can focus entirely on understanding your emotional landscape. There may be moments of sadness or regret as you revisit past experiences, but these feelings are part of the healing process. Buddhism reminds us that growth often begins with seeing reality as it is, without denial or exaggeration. Each time you face your past with awareness, you loosen the grip it has on your present. Over time, you may notice that situations that once triggered strong reactions no longer carry the same intensity. This is a sign that the mind is becoming lighter. Healing karma does not mean becoming perfect or emotionless. It means becoming aware enough to respond with wisdom instead of habit. As this awareness grows, you start feeling a quiet sense of peace that does not depend on external circumstances. Staying single during this phase allows you to rebuild from the inside, creating a foundation where future relationships are no longer shaped by unresolved wounds, but guided by clarity and compassion. Discovering purpose beyond desire. When romantic pursuit is no longer the center of your attention, an unexpected space begins to open inside you. At first, this space may feel unfamiliar, even empty, because much of your emotional energy was once directed towards seeking connection or approval. In Buddhist wisdom, this moment is not a loss but an invitation. It is a chance to look deeper than temporary desires and ask a more meaningful question: what gives your life direction when no one else is defining it for you? Staying single allows you to shift your focus from chasing emotional fulfillment to discovering a purpose that grows from awareness. Desire itself is not seen as wrong in Buddhism, but the teachings remind us that constant craving can keep the mind restless. When life revolves around finding someone to make you feel complete, your sense of purpose can become fragile. Every success or disappointment begins to depend on another person's presence. Solitude interrupts this cycle. Without the constant pull of romantic expectations, you begin noticing interests and passions that were quietly waiting for your attention. You may feel drawn toward learning, creativity, helping others, or simply understanding yourself more deeply. These small discoveries become the first signs of a purpose that is not based on external validation. As you spend more time reflecting, you may notice how your motivations begin to change. Instead of asking, "What will make me feel loved?" you start asking, "What brings meaning to my days?" This shift is powerful because it redirects your energy inward. Buddhism encourages living with intention, where actions are guided by wisdom rather than impulse. You begin to choose activities that align with your values rather than those that only provide temporary excitement. Slowly, a sense of direction forms, not as a rigid plan, but as a quiet understanding of what truly matters to you. Mindfulness plays an important role in discovering purpose. When you become fully present with your experiences, even simple moments can reveal insight. Walking in silence, observing your breath, or dedicating time to personal growth helps you notice what makes you feel grounded. Purpose often emerges from these quiet observations rather than from dramatic events. You may realize that fulfillment comes from consistency rather than intensity, from building something meaningful step by step instead of chasing quick emotional highs. During this stage, it is also common to face doubts. Without the familiar structure of romantic goals, the mind may question whether you are moving in the right direction. Buddhism teaches that uncertainty is a natural part of growth. Rather than rushing to fill the silence with new attachments, you learn to trust the process of self-discovery. Each day spent aligning your actions with awareness strengthens your sense of purpose. You begin to understand that meaning is not something you wait to receive, it is something you create through mindful living. Over time, this deeper purpose changes how you view relationships themselves. Instead of seeing them as the main source of fulfillment, you begin to view them as one part of a much larger journey. You become less likely to compromise your growth for temporary comfort because you now recognize the value of your direction. This does not make you distant from others, it makes your connections more genuine. When your life already feels meaningful, relationships become spaces for shared growth rather than escapes from emptiness. Discovering purpose beyond desire is not about rejecting love or ambition. It is about understanding that lasting fulfillment grows from awareness, compassion, and intention. Staying single during this phase allows you to listen to your inner voice without distraction. And as you continue walking this path, you begin to realize that purpose is not a distant destination waiting to be found. It is a way of living that unfolds naturally when you stop chasing what you think you need and start nurturing what truly gives your life depth and meaning. Non-attachment as a new standard. As you continue walking the path of self-growth, a subtle but powerful shift begins to happen inside you. You start understanding the difference between caring deeply and clinging tightly. In Buddhist teachings, non-attachment does not mean becoming distant or emotionless. It means learning to experience life fully without losing yourself in the process. During a season of staying single, this understanding grows naturally because you are no longer defining your worth through constant connection. Instead, you begin setting a new inner standard based on awareness, balance, and self-respect. At first, the idea of non-attachment can feel confusing. Many people fear that letting go of attachment will make life feel empty or cold. In reality, it creates space for clearer and more compassionate relationships. When you are attached, you may seek reassurance, control outcomes, or fear losing what you value. These patterns often create tension, even when your intentions are good. Solitude gives you the chance to observe these tendencies without judgment. You begin noticing how the mind wants to hold on to people, expectations, or future fantasies. Through mindfulness, you learn to recognize these impulses without automatically acting on them. This stage teaches you to relate to life from a place of presence rather than possession. You start appreciating moments for what they are, instead of worrying about how long they will last. Simple experiences like conversations, friendships, or personal achievements begin to feel lighter because you are no longer trying to make them permanent. Buddhism reminds us that everything is constantly changing, and non-attachment allows you to move with that change instead of resisting it. You become more flexible emotionally, able to care deeply without becoming overwhelmed by fear or insecurity. As non-attachment becomes part of your mindset, your standards for relationships begin to evolve. You stop chasing validation or settling for connections that disrupt your peace. Instead of asking, "Will this person complete me?" you start asking, "Does this connection support growth and understanding?" This change reflects a deeper sense of self-worth. You are no longer driven by loneliness or comparison, but by clarity. Boundaries begin to feel natural rather than forced, because you understand that protecting your inner stability is not selfish. It is necessary for genuine connection. There will be moments when the old habits of attachment try to return. You might notice feelings of jealousy, fear of missing out, or the urge to hold on to something tightly. Buddhism encourages treating these moments with gentle awareness rather than resistance. Each time you pause and observe your reaction, Instead of reacting immediately, you strengthen your ability to remain centered. Over time, this practice builds a quiet confidence that does not depend on external reassurance. Non-attachment also changes how you relate to yourself. You become less harsh when you make mistakes and more patient with your own growth. Instead of clinging to a fixed image of who you think you should be, you allow yourself to evolve naturally. This openness creates a sense of freedom that feels both calm and empowering. You realize that life becomes more meaningful when you stop trying to control every outcome and start trusting the process of change. By the end of this stage, non-attachment no longer feels like a rule you must follow. It becomes a way of living that brings balance to your thoughts and actions. Staying single during this time allows you to practice this mindset deeply, building a foundation that will shape every future connection. When relationships eventually enter your life, they will be guided by awareness rather than fear, and by respect rather than dependency. In this way, non-attachment becomes not a loss of connection, but a new standard for experiencing love with clarity and peace. The quiet strength of inner stability. As you continue walking the path of self-understanding, a deeper form of strength begins to grow within you. This strength is not loud or dramatic. It does not seek attention or approval. It develops quietly through moments when you choose awareness over reaction, patience over urgency, and clarity over confusion. Buddhism often describes true stability as the ability to remain grounded even when circumstances change. During a season of staying single, you are given the rare opportunity to cultivate this inner balance without constant emotional turbulence pulling you away from yourself. In the beginning, solitude may feel heavy at times. There may be moments when you compare your life to others who appear surrounded by connection. The mind might create stories suggesting that you are falling behind or missing something important. Buddhist practice teaches that these thoughts are natural but not permanent. Instead of pushing them away, you learn to observe them gently. Each time you allow a difficult emotion to rise and fall without reacting impulsively, you strengthen your emotional resilience. This process slowly teaches you that stability does not come from controlling life, but from understanding the movement of your own mind. Inner stability also grows when you begin to trust yourself more deeply. Without relying on constant reassurance from a partner, you learn to make decisions based on your own values. You start noticing that your peace is no longer easily shaken by external opinions or temporary setbacks. Challenges still arise, but your response changes. Instead of reacting with fear or urgency, you pause, reflect, and move forward with intention. This shift may feel small at first, yet it creates a powerful sense of independence that transforms how you experience everyday life. Another important aspect of this stage is learning to sit comfortably with uncertainty. Buddhism reminds us that everything in life is impermanent, and trying to force certainty often leads to anxiety. Staying single allows you to practice being present without needing to define every outcome immediately. You become more comfortable not knowing exactly what the future holds. This acceptance does not weaken your ambition. It strengthens your ability to move forward without being paralyzed by fear. Over time, uncertainty begins to feel less like a threat and more like a space of possibility. As your stability deepens, you may notice changes in how you interact with others. Conversations feel calmer because you are not seeking constant validation. Friendships become more genuine because you are present rather than distracted by inner conflict. You begin to listen more carefully and respond with greater compassion. This quiet confidence is not about proving anything to anyone. It is simply the natural result of learning how to remain centered in your own awareness. There will still be moments when old habits try to pull you back into restlessness or doubt. The difference now is that you recognize these moments sooner. Instead of being carried away by them, You return to your breath, your awareness, and the understanding that feelings are temporary. Each time you do this, your inner foundation becomes stronger. You realize that stability is not a fixed state you reach once and keep forever. It is a practice you return to again and again, like a calm anchor in the middle of changing waves. By the time you reach this stage, solitude no longer feels like a waiting period. It feels like a training ground where your mind learns to remain steady regardless of external circumstances. This quiet strength becomes one of the greatest gifts of staying single. It prepares you for future relationships by teaching you how to show up as a balanced and grounded individual rather than someone searching for stability outside themselves. And as this inner calm continues to grow, you begin to understand that real power is not found in constant excitement, but in the peaceful confidence that comes from knowing you can stand firmly within your own presence. Meeting others from a place of completeness. After walking through solitude, discipline, healing, and self-awareness, you begin to notice a quiet transformation inside you. The need to be rescued by love slowly fades, replaced by a deeper sense of wholeness. Buddhism teaches that true connection does not arise from craving but from understanding. When you have spent time building inner stability, the way you approach relationships changes naturally. Instead of searching for someone to fill a gap, you begin to meet others as a complete individual, grounded in your own presence. At this stage, you no longer feel pressured to rush into connection simply because of loneliness or comparison. You have learned how to sit with your thoughts, how to understand your emotions, and how to create meaning in your own life. This foundation allows you to approach others with clarity rather than expectation. Conversations feel lighter because you are not silently asking someone else to validate your worth. You listen more deeply, speak more honestly, and allow relationships to unfold without forcing them into a specific shape. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that everything is impermanent, including relationships. Understanding this truth does not make love less meaningful, it makes it more compassionate. When you meet others from a place of completeness, you appreciate their presence without trying to control it. You recognize that connection is a shared journey rather than a possession. This mindset reduces fear and creates space for genuine understanding. Instead of clinging to what might happen in the future, you focus on being fully present in each moment of interaction. Another powerful shift happens in how you choose who to allow into your life. Because you have taken time to understand your values and boundaries, you naturally gravitate toward connections that support growth and balance. You are less likely to ignore red flags or accept situations that disturb your inner peace. This is not about becoming overly selective or distant. It is about honoring the work you have done within yourself. You begin to understand that the right connection will feel aligned rather than forced, calm rather than chaotic. Meeting others from a place of completeness also changes how you handle challenges within relationships. Disagreements no longer feel like threats to your identity because your sense of self does not depend entirely on the other person. You can express your thoughts without fear of losing yourself. Buddhism encourages responding to conflict with mindfulness, seeing each moment as an opportunity to practice patience and compassion. This approach creates relationships that feel more balanced and less driven by emotional extremes. There may still be moments when old habits of attachment try to return. You might notice the mind wanting to rush ahead or imagine a perfect future. Instead of judging these thoughts, you simply observe them and return to the present moment. The difference now is that you have the awareness to choose how you respond. You no longer need to hold on tightly to feel secure. Trust begins to replace fear, and connection becomes something you experience rather than something you chase. Ultimately, this stage reveals a powerful truth. Staying single was never about avoiding love. It was about learning how to love without losing yourself. When you meet others from a place of completeness, Your presence feels calm and genuine. You are able to give without expectation and receive without dependency. Relationships become spaces for shared growth, where two individuals walk together while still standing firmly within their own awareness. And in that quiet balance, you begin to understand that the deepest connections are not built on need, but on the peaceful confidence of two whole people choosing to walk side by side. Maybe this season of staying single was never a delay. Maybe it was a quiet awakening. Every moment you spent facing yourself, every time you chose awareness over attachment, you were not falling behind life. You were learning how to walk it with clarity. Buddhism reminds us that nothing we experience is wasted when it brings us closer to understanding the mind. The silence you once feared has become a teacher. The solitude that felt heavy has shaped a strength that no external approval can replace. You are no longer searching for someone to complete your story. You are becoming the author of it. And when you move through the world from this place of calm awareness, relationships stop feeling like something you must chase. They become something that arrives naturally, meeting you where you already stand, whole, grounded, and awake. So do not rush to escape this chapter. Honor it, protect it, because the person you are becoming in this quiet season is the foundation for every peaceful connection you will ever experience. Walk forward slowly, with patience and presence. Let your growth be steady, your heart be light, and your path guided not by fear of being alone, but by the deep understanding that true peace begins when you learn to stand fully within yourself.